From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm the official team psychologist of the New York Yankees, also known as Jaime Hixson. Now, we're hoping that Hector Boza can join us on the telephone. He, unfortunately, has not been feeling well. So, it's pretty much 50-50 with him as far as whether he's going to be able to call in or not. First, before we continue, I just want to wish everyone out there a very happy and safe Columbus Day. We hope that you were able to spend as much time with the family as possible. We hope you were able to have as much fun on your day off as possible. Most importantly, we hope that you were able to help commemorate, celebrate, and remember your Italian heritage. A lot of people usually approach Columbus Day as a day to either take advantage of sales at the stores or take advantage of all the good food at whatever restaurant or other place that they go to. But Columbus Day is a very unique holiday in that it celebrates Columbus himself, Christopher Columbus, the man that discovered America. Now, there's been a lot of controversy going on regarding whether Columbus Day should even be a holiday or not, especially considering that there have been some, let's just say that there were some discoveries about his past that not too many people have been happy about. I will say this, though. If it weren't for Christopher Columbus, we'd have no America. If it weren't for Christopher Columbus, we'd have no Columbus Day. If it weren't for Christopher Columbus, we would not be able to celebrate Italian heritage the way we have. And it's not just for Italian natives either. It's for everybody that wants to be able to celebrate this unique holiday. So, again, I say happy Columbus Day. We certainly hope that you had a wonderful day. And now, let's get on to sports. Anyway, well, in baseball, the League Championship Series has now taken place. The Division Series wrapped up this past weekend, and now we're on to the League Championship Series. As far as the Yankees go, this is probably about as bizarre and as unfulfilling a season as there has been in franchise history. Because of the coronavirus, Major League Baseball had a 60-game season for 2020. Because of the coronavirus, the fans were not able to indulge in their favorite pastime of taking in a game and having some peanuts and Cracker Jack at the game. Because of the coronavirus, the players had to force themselves to play in front of empty stadiums all over the country. And of course, as far as the Yankees and the Mets go, both teams wound up having a very, very unfulfilling season. The Yankees, of course, kind of brought this upon themselves when they decided to go with Davy Garcia for just one inning and then go with a bullpen by committee. I don't know about you, but why do I get the feeling that the Yankees really don't have enough confidence in their young pitchers the way they should? I remember when Andy Pettitte was at the beginning of the Yankees' heyday in 1995. Pettitte was able to pitch one of the games of the Division Series, and he came away with a very important victory. And as it turns out, Pettitte would go on to have a borderline Hall of Fame career. And also, he wound up having his number retired. His number 46 was retired at the stadium. But as the years have gone by, I've been seeing the Yankees go with more veteran pitchers than anything else in their system. And it's a real shame because they have a lot of good young stars in their minor league system that they probably could go with for the future. Garcia being one of them. Clark Schmidt being another. Michael King, who they converted into the bullpen. Is it me, or do the Yankees have a little bit of a fear when it comes to using these guys in big games? And the excuse that the manager wound up showing during the press conference after Game 2, it just left a lot of people shaking their heads in amazement at what this guy did to sabotage his own team's chances of probably going to at least a league championship series as opposed to a World Series. He said that he wanted to match up with the Rays' batting order. Let me tell you something. Davy Garcia is a good, solid, left-handed pitcher who's got a real future ahead of him. In fact, I would think that he would probably challenge for a starting spot in 2021. But for Aaron Boone to come away and say that he wanted to go with the matchups, that's not really coming across as very genuous, if you ask me. It's gotten to the point where the Yankees have not really shown that much respect for any of their kid pitchers in their system. So what's going to happen in 2021 when Davy Garcia or Clark Schmidt goes for a spot in the rotation? That's even assuming that we even have a 2021 season, because we still have this virus going around and it's not allowing for a lot of stuff to take place. Only time will tell as far as what will happen here. As far as the other downward spirals that the Yankees wound up having to go through, once again, the team wound up coming away with several injuries. Aaron Judge was hurt, and also Giancarlo Stanton was hurt as well. At least they were able to return with a bit of a cushion of 20 or 30 games or so, that they were able to still hit the ball reasonably well. Stanton was probably hitting the ball much better than Judge was. In fact, Stanton wound up hitting 6 home runs in the series against Cleveland and Tampa. So that just goes to show you that if he's healthy and available for 150 games, he could put together a monster season like he did with the Marlins a few years ago. The other bright side to this whole thing was Garrett Cole. This guy showed that he is the real deal when it comes to pitching in a big postseason game. He showed it against the Indians, and he showed it against the Rays. Now, let's see who's going to join him in that number 2 through number 5 spots in the rotation and make them a contender next season. And the more I see this guy hitting at the plate, the more DJ LeMahieu has become a real superstar for that club. The only problem is he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So now it's gotten to the point where the Yankees have to decide whether they want to bring him back or not. I think it should be a no-brainer that the Yankees have to re-sign him. How long they're going to re-sign him for, only time will tell. Then there's the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that's Gary Sanchez. Gary Sanchez looked about as lost at the plate as he has in years past. Last year and this year, he has really gotten lost at the plate in trying to perfect his swing. Now it's gotten to the point where the Yankees have to decide what to do with catcher. Are they going to go with Sanchez? Maybe have him do some winter ball in the Dominican? Should they have him stay at home in Florida and have him fine-tune his swing there? Or should they just cast him aside? I'll tell you right now, he's going to be really difficult to trade because, for one, his batting prowess has declined very, very badly. And two, who's going to want a guy that commits one passed ball after another behind the plate? It's gotten to the point where the Yankees have to decide whether it's going to be him or Kyle Higashioka, who, by the way, was the better defensive catcher and was the better hitter during the season. That's going to be starting next season. Higashioka is a little bit older than Sanchez. Higashioka is 30 years old now, and he's spent a good 10 years in the minor leagues. I think now is as good a time as any for Higashioka to make his way to the big time, because he's been able to show that he can hit the ball. He has a little bit of pop. He pulls the ball a lot more than Sanchez does. Sanchez seems to be lunging at a whole bunch of pitches at the plate. Sanchez still has the power to try and drive one out of here, but he really needs to recognize what breaking pitches look like, because he doesn't seem to have any idea whether something is going to be curving down or going to be hitting one of the corners. Now, I'm trying to look at Higashioka's statistics for his career. Here we are. It's hard to imagine Higashioka spending 10 seasons in the minor leagues. Let's see. He hasn't even spent that much time with the big club either. He spent 9, 29, 18, and 16 games in each of his 4 seasons with the Yanks. That's a total of 72 games in 4 years. And his numbers, they really don't tell the story of what this guy can do. 186 average, but 10 home runs and 27 RBIs in 72 games. So that would be about a home run every 7 games or so. So if you were to translate those numbers into 144 games, which would be practically an entire season for him, it would be 20 homers and 54 RBIs. This year was probably his best season swinging the bat. Only 16 games, but a .250 average, 4 homers, 10 RBIs. So I would give Higashioka one whole spring training to see if he can really, for lack of a better phrase, knock it out of the park. Now, as far as the other players are concerned, Luke Voit probably had about as terrific a season, even though that it was cut short because of the virus. 22 homers and 62 RBIs. Something tells me we might have found the first baseman of the future in Luke Voit. As far as the outfield, the big X factor might be Brett Gardner. Brett Gardner has been a true professional for that team. 13 years and a championship and loads of big plays in the outfield. He's still a good defensive outfielder, always a solid contact hitter. And, of course, the only source of speed that the Yankees have in their batting order. And the Yankees have been really, really criticized for not being able to add some speed into their batting order. if this guy goes, then you're not going to be able to have anybody try and start an inning by drawing walks and then bunting them over or having them steal a base and then bunting them over or hitting a ground ball to the other side of the infield so they can hit the ball to the outfield and get a run home. This is going to be really, really interesting to see what Brett Gardner and his stance is on the Yankees. He's not even that old anymore. He's only about 37 years old, but he may want to continue to play. He may want to retire. Who knows? If he wants to play, I would at least give the Yankees some advice and probably giving him another one-year deal, because a guy like him can really help a team with their running game. As far as on the infield, Gleyber Torres, I mean, granted, it wasn't the best of seasons for him, just a .243 average, but I'll tell you what, the guy is a star in the making. You give him one good spring training, and I think he might be able to turn it around. What is there to say about Gio Urshela? Gio Urshela has been a godsend for that team. He's been hitting the ball well. He's been making great defensive plays at third base, one after another. I think he might be the Yankee third baseman for the next 10 years when you think about it. And to think, the Cleveland Indians discarded that kid for no reason whatsoever. As far as the rest of the outfield is concerned, it's been a very interesting year for Aaron Hicks. Didn't really show much at the plate, and he played almost every single game in the shortened season after missing over 100 games last season because he was hurt. Now, you look at his career numbers. He's got a new long-term contract that he signed about a year ago. .235 average and just 88 homers and 297 RBIs and only 55 steals. I mean, he's a good defender when it comes to tracking down fly balls in the outfield, but I would cover my eyes as far as him throwing a ball somewhere either towards the infield or throwing it to home plate, because he's a real adventure out there. Now, as far as who else in the outfield, probably the big wild card here is Clint Frazier. Clint Frazier has shown that he can be a real important player in somebody's batting order. Now, what are you going to do with this guy? Are you going to have him be the everyday starter in the outfield along with Aaron Hicks and Giancarlo Stanton? Or are you going to probably use him as trade bait to try and get a pitcher? You could go anywhere with this, folks, because this kid has really shown that he can put together a really solid season. And his numbers were pretty decent. .267 average, 8 homers, 26 RBIs. As far as overall numbers, 258 average, 24 homers, 82 RBIs. That's over a 162-game season. So if he were to play a full season, he could put together some really decent numbers. as far as the pitching staff, as far as back to the pitching staff, the other wild card in this is Masahiro Tanaka. He's had good seasons, not great seasons, just good seasons. The most he's ever won in a full season was 14 games. This from a guy who won 34 games pitching in the Japanese leagues. And this from a guy who has also been pitching with a partial tear of his UCL ligament in his elbow. Should the Yankees bring back a guy who's been averaging only 13 or 14 victories per season, you would think that a guy like him would probably reach about 20 wins a year, but he hasn't been able to do that lately, mostly because he's been hurt. So as far as the Yankees are concerned, it's 50-50 whether they bring back Masahiro Tanaka or not. Let me go over his numbers for you. He's had 7 years as a Yankee, 7 very good years. He's averaging 11 wins per year, which is, it's just okay for us. It's not great. I mean, anybody that suits up in the pinstripes should be able to expect at least 20 wins a season. Well, there are some pitchers that are out there that the Yankees could probably go after as far as cutting a deal or making a trade is concerned. One of them is Corey Kluber. Now, Corey Kluber is an interesting project because he has pretty much had a Masahiro Tanaka-like career. Tanaka, of course, has won 78 games against 46 losses in 7 seasons. As far as Kluber is concerned, correction, not Corey Kluber, Trevor Bauer. The one person that the Yankees could probably consider is Trevor Bauer. The one-time star with the Cleveland Indians, who spent the last, let's see here, year and a half with the Reds. Now, he's had one season that you can consider great, and that's 17 wins in 2017 when he pitched for the Indians. Other than that, the last 2 years, he's had a combined 16-17 record with the Indians and the Reds. And overall, he's pitched 9 years, and he has a lifetime record of 75-64. When you think about it, Masahiro Tanaka has had probably the better career than Trevor Bauer. So you can draw that for all it's worth, as far as I'm concerned. You know, as I mentioned before, pitching is going to have to be something that the Yankees really have to strongly consider, because I've had friends say to me, well, they ain't got no pitching. The pitching that they had was good. It was able to get them to the wild card round. If it wasn't any good, they would not have made the playoffs at all. That's one thing. Another thing is, what do you do to try and improve that batting order? If you're going to have a 162-game season next year, you're going to need somebody who's really going to be able to slug it out of the park. Now, you might say, well, the Yankees already have that with Giancarlo Stanton and also Aaron Judge, which is fine. But at the same time, you want to be able to get a slugger who's going to get a clutch hit in a really, really big spot. And since game one of the Tampa series, the Yankees just were not able to get that big, big hit in a clutch spot. And that's something that the Yankees really have to work on for next year. So Brian Cashman, as always, has a lot on his plate that he has to worry about for next season. He's got to worry about pitching. And what about the bullpen? The bullpen was rather up and down during the majority of the season. Aroldis Chapman, when he came back from his illness, got off to a dreadful start. Fortunately, he was able to come back, so to speak. Oh, I see his numbers here: 1-1 record, 3.09 ERA, and of course, let me see. Let me check his number of saves here. Only 3 saves. Well, I think we saw who the de facto closer was for them this season. It was Zach Britton, because he literally had a perfect season for them. 8 saves in as many chances. Now, as far as the other guys are concerned, Luis Cessa, Chad Green, Jay Happ, Jonathan Loaizaga, Jordan Montgomery, Nick Nelson, Adam Ottavino. These guys really need to step it up in the future. Specifically, Adam Ottavino. He looked so hittable at times last year that it was tough to have to see him pitch every single time. Chad Green. Green has got the stuff. He can toss about 95 to 100 miles an hour. But sometimes he has a bad habit of letting his stuff go straight down the middle as opposed to having some bite on it. Jay Happ. Jay Happ is a guy who is also going to be a free agent at the end of the year. He hasn't been terrible. I mean, keep in mind, when he first got traded to the Yankees, he wound up being 7-0 down the stretch of the 2018 pennant race. 2019, he was solid, 12-8 record. You can't even try and judge him on 2020 because he only had 9 games, and he had a 2-2 record. So you really can't judge him on just a short season. Jonathan Holder, another guy with pretty good stuff, but sometimes can be hittable. Adam Ottavino, hittable. Jonathan Loaizaga, a really interesting project that the Yankees have had. A Brazilian-born kid who can throw a Nicaraguan kid who can really throw the heat when he can. His 2019 season was rather up and down. 2020 was good, but so far, I don't seem to think that that Loaizaga can harness the amount of heat or control, mostly control. I don't seem to think that he can harness the amount of control that he's lacking. Now, as far as the New York Mets are concerned, where to even go with the Mets? New ownership still being contemplated by Major League Baseball. Who's going to be in the front office for next season? Joining Sandy Alderson, that is, because Sandy Alderson just got named the new team president. What's going to happen with the manager? Is he going to be around next year, or is he just going to be a one-year wonder? What's going to happen with the pitching staff? All I know is Jacob deGrom and David Peterson are two guys who seem to really have formed a 1-2 punch for the Mets to rely on next season. Now, maybe the Mets can consider signing a guy like Corey Kluber. Who knows? He might be able to snap out of his two-season funk and in some new surroundings. Who knows? Now, as far as the batting order is concerned, we know that Michael Conforto is supposed to do some arbitration for 2021. If there were ever a time for the Mets to try and lock up one of their young stars, it's now, and it's this guy. Because Michael Conforto has just been rock steady for the Mets these last 5 or 6 years. And his defense has been solid overall. He's also been a really good influence in the clubhouse. He's been slowly but surely, he's grown to be a good clubhouse leader for them. Now, as far as Pete Alonso is concerned, you can just erase 2020. That was not him. That was not anyone even close to him. All he needs is a good spring training for him to probably try and snap out of it. But what he needs to do is lay off breaking pitches, because there were times when he looked really ridiculous trying to chase after breaking balls and sliders. So he really has to show a little bit more patience at the plate and try and not have to knock everything out of the park. I think he fell into that trap where he tried to hit everything like a home run. Maybe he should be a little bit more of a run producer than a home run hitter. Not to say that home runs are bad, but let's face facts. There are some guys who really develop that Dave Kingman syndrome and try to hit everything out of the park every time. Now, as far as the rest of that infield is concerned, after Alonso at first, exactly how much more does Robinson Cano have left? I mean, he's signed for another 3 years in his 10-year contract. And I'd like to think that maybe Cano can maybe pull the ball a little bit more as far as driving in some runs is concerned. As far as shortstop's going to be a little bit of an issue, because the Mets already have Ahmed Rosario as their shortstop. But what's going to happen when Andre Jimenez, continues to hit the ball more? Do you have Jimenez play third base and keep Rosario at short? Or do you have Jimenez be the shortstop and maybe you use Rosario in a trade package? Who knows? You can forget the numbers for this year. I mean, they really don't tell the whole story of what potential these two kids have. Although Jimenez did show signs of hitting the ball really well in games during the season. There's also the matter of J.D. Davis and Brandon Nimmo, and also Jake Marisnick. J.D. Davis, showed steady progress during the year. Brandon Nimmo, I'm telling you, the more I see this kid play, the more I like him. He does what every ball player, what the majority of ball players should do time and time again, and that's draw walks. I'm wondering how many walks Brandon Nimmo drew during the season and what and where his stance was. Let's see here. I see that Bryce Harper led the majors with 49 walks. Brandon Nimmo was in the top 20 this season. He had 33 walks during the year. As far as the National League, Nimmo was 10th in the league with 33 walks. Let me tell you, I know walks are not the sexy part of the game. Everybody wants to see home runs. But there's something that needs to be said for getting on base via the walk. It starts rallies. It allows for guys to be hit into scoring position, and it improves their chances of probably scoring a run here and there during the continuation of a game. Now, we were talking about the pitching staff earlier. First thing the Mets should worry about is their starting rotation. After David Peterson, who was a revelation for them this year, and Jacob deGrom, that starting five was a complete and unmitigated mess. So much so that Steven Matz lost his spot in the rotation and wound up going into the bullpen, and he was progressively worse coming out of that bullpen. And they even tried Seth Lugo, promoting him to the rotation from the bullpen. Lugo didn't necessarily distinguish himself as a starting pitcher. So if I'm the Mets, I look for someone either in the minor leagues or maybe somebody off the scrap heap in the free agent market. Again, maybe go for somebody like Corey Kluber, who would be more suited to the Mets than to the Yankees. As far as the bullpen is concerned, take your choice as far as who was really horrendous coming out of that bullpen. Dylan Betances, Brad Brock, Miguel Castro, Edwin Diaz, Jody Familia, Jared Hughes, Franklin Quilome, Corey Oswalt, Rick Porcello, Paul Sewald, Chasen Shreve, Drew Smith, Michael Walker. That's another thing. Rick Porcello and Michael Walker, who were two free agents that were brought in to try and steady the starting rotation, were both horrendous. I don't think either one of them won more than one game for the entire season. So we know that Rick Porcello wound up being demoted into the bullpen, and so was Walker. I think this Met pitching staff is doomed right now because I don't see anybody out there that could probably help them be steady, to be honest with you. And there's still the issue of what's going to be with the ownership situation. Also, what's baseball operations going to look like? I mentioned Rojas. Exactly how aggressive are the Mets going to be now that Steve Cohen is going to be the new front office boss of the entire organization. Are they going to be doing any trades, or are they going to be going after some free agents? All I can say is, if you're going to go after free agents, you better make sure that these guys are worth it, man, because we cannot stand to see any more Michael Walkers or Rick Porcellos stinking up the mound and costing the team games. Well, that's practically it for baseball. Now turning to football for a little bit. Unfortunately, Sam Darnold has gotten himself hurt once again, which means he had to be benched for the Cardinal game this past weekend. And Joe Flacco, who won a championship with the Ravens and was hurt most of last year with the Broncos, he wound up being the starting quarterback for the Jets this past weekend against the Cardinals. As for the Giants, it's Giants versus Cowboys. What do you think? Usually this rivalry features two good teams, but this time it featured two of the worst teams in the league. And quite frankly, I think there should be a bit of a watch on Dak Prescott, because he has had his moments where he's been able to shine, but at the same time, he's also had his moments where he's committed a bad turnover here and there. So let's see what Prescott can do moving forward from this game. Speaking of games, the Monday night game that's taking place any moment right now. Hold up, we just got to bring it up over here. Chargers and Saints. Isn't it amazing how Drew Brees has still been able to sling the ball every which way but loose? You wonder if he's going to be able to do this for another 2 or 3 years, because it seems like he's been able to throw darts every single time that he's been on the field. Well, the NBA season is over, so now that NBA season is over, we can move ahead and look at the NBA draft. We know that the Timberwolves have the first overall pick in the draft. And there's been some talk about whether they're going to do anything with Karl Anthony Towns or not. Well, let's put it this way. With that first pick, don't be surprised if you see the Timberwolves grab one of the Ball kids, LaMelo Ball, the point guard, and maybe put him together as a gruesome twosome along with Karl Anthony Towns. Now the Knicks are going to have the 8th pick in the draft. Your guess is as good as mine, folks, as far as what that abomination of a franchise is going to be doing. There was one rumor in the Bleacher Report that said maybe the Knicks should try and make a trade with, I think it was either the Atlanta Hawks or the Cleveland Cavaliers for the 4th overall pick. So if they're able to trade that high, then hats off to them. But to be quite honest with you, I would have to see what the Knicks would be able to do to try and better themselves along with R.J. Barrett. As far as the Nets are concerned, the Nets, if I'm not mistaken, let me see. Here we are. Here's the here's what this report said. And let me correct myself. This potential trade would be for the Bulls' number 4 overall pick. And Kevin Knox would also be involved as well. There were also rumors that if the Knicks wanted to trade up for the first overall pick, that the Timberwolves would want R.J. Barrett, and the Knicks were not going to let him go. I don't know about you, but after the so-so season that R.J. Barrett had in his rookie year, why not take a gamble and mortgage a young player like that so you can try and get that first overall pick? Do you know how big LaMelo Ball has become ever since he declared for the draft? Let me tell you, no one really knows that much about him except for the fact that he's the younger brother of LaMelo Ball, and of course the son of the loudmouth LeVar Ball. But from what I understand, he's a really good passer, really good defensive player, not much of a shooter, which also describes his brother at length. But anybody that wants to start a roster, it would fit them well if they were to go with a point guard. But in this one, the Knicks would get both of the Bulls' draft picks, number 8 and number 38, in exchange. Actually, the Bulls would get the 8th and 38th pick, along with Kevin Knox for the number 4 pick. And according to the report, it says the Knicks could set their sights on Tyrese Halliburton of Iowa State. Interesting. The Knicks would value his passing, decision-making, character, and versatility to play off the ball, and he would allow the front office to stay flexible while building the roster. Halliburton will make his money by setting up teammates for easy looks, but he also shot 49.3% on spot-up jumpers as a sophomore. And the Knicks need shooting. Well, I think that goes without saying, first of all. Second of all, the Knicks just need a team, because that franchise as is not cutting it. The Knicks need a team. How do you build that team? You start with a point guard. So the Knicks should try all they can to try and get that first overall pick. And as for the Nets, they would get themselves, they've been linked to the swingman Josh Green from Arizona. It says that Green is all over the place on the boards, but the Nets may value his explosiveness and role player mentality. They could mask his limited creation ability and allow Green to focus on transition offense, slashing, spot-up shooting, and defending the perimeter. Very interesting. there's one other thing involving the NBA. If you want to be a free agent, or if you're going to be a free agent in the upcoming NBA off season, why not take your talents and move to Miami? Word has it that the Heat, who just recently played in the NBA Finals against the Lakers, would be the top destination for any free agent to go to. This makes a lot of sense because you consider that the Heat have Jimmy Butler, who had a solid season with them, Bam Adebayo, who just came on like gangbusters in the playoffs and unfortunately missed some valuable time during the playoffs. There's also Goran Dragic, who missed valuable time in the finals. And also two really, really talented young kids, Tyler Herro and Duncan Robinson. Herro, of course, has been more of the X factor that the Heat have gone to, while Robinson has been, I guess you could call him the de facto point guard, if you will, which is not bad considering the guy's 6'8". Anyway, as far as what other places you could consider to be a free agent, obviously Los Angeles. I mean, this could be somebody's final chance to play with LeBron James. And in the event that he leaves or retires or both, maybe consider the Clippers, especially considering that Kawhi Leonard and also Paul George are on the roster. Those are two guys that are very, very good compliments to work with. What other places can one go to try and build oneself as a free agent? I mentioned Miami. Maybe Orlando, because Orlando has a budding team that might contend for a deep run in the playoffs in the next couple of years. As far as what other places they might consider, sorry about that, folks. As far as other places where teams might consider, there's very, very, very few places for a real superstar. I mean, a superstar player along the lines of LeBron and Kawhi Leonard to try and go to, except for those three places: LA, Miami, and Orlando. Maybe they could consider one of the Texas teams. Dallas would be a pretty good place to go to. Houston, possibly. Although it's going to be kind of hard working with James Harden, especially considering that he commands the ball so much. San Antonio, there was a time when San Antonio was a place to consider playing, but with the big three having now retired, it's going to be a little bit difficult for somebody to go over there and be part of a rebuilding team. Now, some places to avoid as far as free agency is concerned. The Knicks, for one. Atlanta, Boston, Philly, Charlotte, Washington, Denver. Yes, I mentioned Denver, even though they made the Western Conference Finals this year. Would you want to play in the frozen tundra of Denver? I don't think so. Utah is another place that a lot of free agents have considered avoiding like the plague. Also, Sacramento, another place that's basically become or has long been Skid Row for NBA players. What to consider? We mentioned some of the cities before. Maybe consider San Francisco, which is a really popular place for hippies to go to. As far as other places to probably consider, maybe the Windy City of Chicago. I say maybe. It's hit or miss, to be honest with you, because Chicago, the weather just does not attract a lot of the free agents that make their way over there. It's not like the Jordan years anymore when people wanted to play with Michael. Now, with about 3.5 minutes left, that's gonna do it for basketball. Let's quickly go over to hockey right now. We mentioned before that the Tampa Bay Lightning won their second Stanley Cup in franchise history. Now, the draft wound up taking place recently, and the Rangers had the first overall pick in the draft. And the Rangers wound up getting one of the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League's best players, Alexis Lafreniere. They wound up drafting him first overall. They had a second number one draft pick as well, which is 19th at all. And they wound up acquiring that pick from the Flames for the 22nd and 72nd overall picks. And the Blue Shirts selected a 19-year-old defenseman named Braden Schneider, who played for the Western Hockey League. As for the second round, the Rangers selected an 18-year-old named Will Kyle, who played in the Ontario Hockey League. He's 6'3", 212 pounds. Now, in the third round, the Rangers wound up getting a teenager named Oliver Tarnstrom, who played in Sweden during the season. Then came the fourth round pick, and they chose Dylan Garand, who played in the Western Hockey League. Fifth round, they wound up selecting Evan Vierling, who played in the Ontario Hockey League. Another fifth-round pick, Brett Berard, who was selected 134th overall and played for Team USA's under-18 squad. And in the sixth round, the Rangers selected an 18-year-old named Matthew Rempe, who skated in the Western Hockey League. And finally, seventh-round pick was Hugo Olas, who played in Sweden's Super Elite League during the regular season. So I see that we got 45 seconds left, so I think we're just going to call it a night, everyone. This time I want to say thanks to Terry Converse, who's on the other side of the glass. Thanks to everybody for watching us tonight. I certainly hope that I didn't bore you. And for everyone here, I'm Jamie. We hope you enjoy the rest of your Columbus Day evening. Good night, everyone.